This past week was a big week. Sunday was a big day for the Texas Longhorns. The Longhorns get a great win over the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, the first win over a top 10 team at home in the Charlie Strong era. And here to talk about it and all things Longhorns is our friend from Orangebloods.com. It is Anwar Richardson. Anwar, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing excellent today, man. It's easier to cover a team when they win. Everyone's happy. Fans are happy. I mean, it's like smooth sailing. I don't know what this feeling's like.
Yeah, I know. You've been covering the Longhorns
2 years now?
Yeah, for a while now. Basically through
this is year 3 now. This is year 3.
Year 3. So you've been there as long as Charlie Strong has been there. So
yes,
really,
correct.
How much do you think it has to do with you that we needed time for you to kind of get to know the team? How much success do you have directly in the Longhorn success?
Well, I will say this: I am a coach killer because I did cover Dungy while I was in Tampa as an NFL writer. He eventually got fired. Covered John Gruden in Tampa. He eventually got fired. Covered Raheem Morris in Tampa. He eventually got fired. Covered Jim Schwartz in Detroit. He eventually got fired. So I wouldn't necessarily call me a good luck charm.
Okay, all right.
Hey, to be fair, we all get fired eventually.
Yeah, I mean we're all heading towards the big pink slip in the sky.
Well, you do radio. I mean, and you can wake up tomorrow. This station will be a Spanish station. So
Yeah.
I mean,
True.
you know, guys,
That's
you know
true.
how that
That's a
goes.
great point.
ACCF, whatever,
Now,
Vita.
yes. So now I want to ask you about the win on Sunday. They go and get a thrilling double overtime win at home over Notre Dame. Obviously, we'll think back to the win over Oklahoma last year for the biggest reference. But is this the biggest win of the Charlie Strong era?
Oh, this is by far the biggest win. And listen, the Oklahoma game was big for a lot of different reasons, but I think this one is bigger only because this is to the start of the season. And the Oklahoma game, while they had how as big as that was and how meaningful that was, and there were so many questions about Charlie Strong and his future and what may happen. But when it was all said and done, they still went out and they still lost a few more games. So this was the start of the season, and this was to get things started off. And this is nationally televised. This is on, was ABC. It's over 100,000 people, lots of recruits. And, the one thing that I will say that helps this victory be bigger than anything is this is the victory that giving Texas Longhorn fans hope. So that's the one thing that hasn't been here for the past few years. There hasn't been a lot of hope. It's been one of those, win one game, lose a couple of more, win one game, lose a couple of more. This is the first time I believe that a Texas Longhorn fan in the Charlie Strong era has had a victory and felt like there could be many more of these to come, or maybe that the team, has turned the corner. So it's big for that fact alone, and having a quarterback, I think, also gives the people a lot of hope too.
I don't think there was necessarily too many people necessarily shocked that Texas won this game. I think a lot of people thought this game could be close and Texas could come out with the win. But what surprised you about what happened on Sunday night?
Well, I would disagree with you being shocked. I mean, this is Texas was an unranked team. Now they're magically 11th in the AP poll. So, to think they can, I think we all thought it'd be close. I think there was very few people that would have bet their 401k that Texas would have won. The biggest surprise for me, though, I thought the offense would be pretty good. I didn't know that the offense would have the firepower to do what it did. And this is an offense that was still without Colin Johnson playing, still without a Devin Duvernay, two guys at receiver was supposed to have that type of impact. This is not a game they win last year. Charlie Strong said that this week. Players have said that this week, and they talk about the emotional component, how guys would have probably gotten down and maybe quit. But I don't think this is a game that offensively they could have won last year. So I had high hopes for or high expectations rather for Sterling Gilbert. I've always believed in him and always thought he was going to be a really good OC. But for the way he called those plays, and the way he had, Shane Buechele ready. It takes a lot to get a true freshman ready. I mean, think about it. This is true freshman on that stage versus Notre Dame, with all that history, he never flinched. He never blinked. You never had that time span where you saw him just kind of to crumple and you started to worry. Now, hey, he's a freshman. Maybe it comes later on. But for him to perform like that and the offense to perform the way it did, those were kind of probably the two bigger shocks, or not even shocks, but the two things that I think I was impressed with the most.
Speaking of Sterling Gilbert and Shane Buechele, you've got a story up on Orangebloods.com talking with Sterling Gilbert about what makes them a good match, about why Sterling Gilbert is a good fit for Shane Buechele. Can you tell us a little bit about that, why this new offensive coordinator may be just the perfect guy to break in a guy like Shane Buechele?
Well, the one thing about Sterling Gilbert that I've noticed since he's arrived here is that he's a really laid-back kind of West Texas type of guy. And he doesn't get emotionally high or low. He's not one of those guys that rides the emotional roller coaster. We see that all the time in coaching. You see guys who one day they're screaming, and they're screaming down guys, and they're screaming at players. And sometimes that has an adverse effect on kids. But Sterling Gilbert's not that type of way, and how Shane Buechele has told me, this benefits him because the guy's the same way in practice as he is in the game. And when the game was there on Sunday and as it got started, because he was just that same person, same demeanor all throughout the game, that's one reason why Shane Buechele always felt comfortable and always felt like he can talk and communicate, and they fed off of each other. When Shane Buechele threw that interception, he came to the sidelines, and Gilbert kind of gave him the eye test. That's the eye test you want to give every young quarterback. You want to be able to look in his eyes and see, is he okay? Is he rattled? He passed that test. All Gilbert had to say to him was, it's all right, let's ride, we'll get him next time. And the kid said, okay, and that was it. So having that type of calm, peaceful demeanor, it's been very effective for them so far.
We're talking with Anwar Richardson of Orangebloods.com here on DCTF Live. Get involved in the conversation at hashtag DCTF Live. And Anwar, the other side of this, though, is that Texas did give up some points, and they gave up more than they gave up more than 5.8 yards per play. Now, we think this is a pretty good Notre Dame offense, rather. But is there a little bit of concern about the Longhorns' defense all of a sudden?
Well, it's interesting you asked that, because I only 10 minutes ago finished talking to Vance Bedford, the defensive coordinator. Absolute concern. And it's not to say that there's a panic button, but it's something that the team wants to get better. Now, it's easy to make these assessments when you win, right? Mm-hmm. If you would have lost, then it's a little bit different of a story. But there's a couple of things here at play. You still have some young guys who are still trying to find their way. Second thing that you got to consider and factor in is, when you look at Kaiser, most people feel like he is going to be he's an NFL prospect. Some people are talking about him possibly being one of the top quarterbacks taken in this upcoming draft. Ironically, he can't start for Notre Dame, but that's a totally different subject for a totally different day. So when you look at what he is and what he's able to do, those type of things are going to happen. The other third and really interesting thing is that the following day we saw FSU play Ole Miss. You think about all those points that were given up by two really good teams, right? So you have to understand that in a college football game, you are going to give up points. Those type of things are going to happen. But Texas has got to get better, as far as stopping the run. They got to play more consistently. They've got to get pressure on the quarterback more consistently than we saw. You just didn't see that play in and play out. Coach Bedford feels like they played extremely well in the fourth quarter, or at least a lot better in the fourth quarter. They had a few 3 and outs. I feel very good about how they played at least in the overtime. So going forward, they're going to play UTEP this upcoming week. Gives you a chance to work on some things, get some kinks out before they go on the road against Cal in 2 weeks.
And then in week one in the Big 12, what was a bit of a mixed bag. There were teams that I think looked better or as good as we thought they would. Teams like Baylor, teams like
Texas Tech.
Yeah. Texas, obviously. I think West Virginia's win over Missouri was pretty good. On the other side, there were other teams that disappointed. Oklahoma, obviously losing to Houston. TCU looked very shaky against South Dakota State. Did anything in week one change how you think the Big 12 is going to shake out?
I think the thing that honestly changed it for me was Texas. We went into the Oklahoma game realizing that Houston was a really good program, and I think most of us within the state of Texas understand that Houston's not really a joke. Tom Herman's got that program kick in, and we knew that they were going to give Oklahoma a really good fight. Texas, Baylor scoring 1 billion points. I mean, we've seen that before. Texas Tech, you expect them to do that with that quarterback that they have there. The one team you never really anticipated, or not a lot of people anticipated possibly being in the mix, is the University of Texas. Listen, still a lot of football to go. So we can't talk about Big 12 championships or anything to that effect. But majority of us made our preseason predictions or thought, and you said, okay, maybe Texas is going to have 7 wins, or maybe Texas is going to have 8 wins. We all put Notre Dame as a loss. Very few people can honestly say they had this as a win for Texas. So with that being said, that changes the complexion, and you have a team that is young but has a big victory early, and then maybe they go on against Cal and have the potential to be 3-0 and start getting some confidence. All of a sudden, and then look at a team like Oklahoma that still has a lot of tough games left before they even get to Texas. I mean, they still got to face an Ohio State team, and we all know that's going to be tough. So I think Texas winning against Notre Dame is probably been the one thing I was unexpected and kind of, for me, changes the landscape of the Big 12.
He is Anwar Richardson. You can follow him on Twitter at Anwar Richardson, and you can see his fine work at Orangebloods.com. Anwar, appreciate your time, buddy, and get back to work.
That is an easy demand. So you guys have a great week.
There he goes.